Pika, Pika, Pikachu.
Hey everybody, it's Cooper here, and today I'd like to talk about the 20th anniversary of Pokemon. And I figured for this video I would take a lot of footage of my Pokemon collection, the things that Pokemon related items that I have, games, and just toys and figures and all that kind of stuff. And I figured that I would just talk over the footage of that, so I hope you guys enjoy the video. So I grew up with Pokemon, and I grew up watching the TV show, playing the Game Boy games and the Nintendo 64 games, and collecting and trading the cards with my friends. And it was a huge part of my life. And my mom always likes to say that the only time I really ever got in trouble at school was for Pokemon cards. And at my elementary school, I think it was like third, fourth, or fifth grade when Pokemon was really popular, like when it first came out. And I remember walking home one day with a few friends, and I used to walk home from school all the time because we didn't live too far from the school. And I had two friends who were brother and sister, and they lived in between my house and the school. So when we'd walk home, I would walk with them to their house and then continue on from there to my house. And they lived with the back of their house in an alley, and that's the way they'd come in, because the alley was before the road to their house. And I remember going down the alley one day and seeing like 4 or 5 kids standing in a circle, and they were kids from the school that we knew, and we walked up, we're like, hey, what are you guys doing? And they were trading Pokemon cards, and this was the first time that I had ever seen them. And I don't know what it is about Pokemon, but instantly I was just like super excited about it, and I was addicted like at that moment, and I wanted them. And one of the kids that was there trading gave me a Vulpix card, and I thought that it was, obviously knowing nothing about Pokemon or the cards or rarity or anything, I thought that it must have been a pretty rare card because it had the black background with the sparkles in it, and they looked like little diamonds. And I was so excited, and that was the only card I had. And I went home and I showed my mom, and I was like, Mom, these are Pokemon cards, and they're so cool. Can you buy me some? And eventually I started, getting a few packs and getting my own little collection going. And it wasn't short after that it was like the most popular thing in the world. And every kid at school had a collection of Pokemon cards. And initially they were allowed at school, but you were only allowed to have them out during recess because they didn't want them to be a distraction. And that only lasted about a week or two, and then they eventually banned them altogether because kids could not, no one could follow the rules, and people were still pulling them out during class and talking about them and trading and all that kind of stuff. So they eventually banned them. And my mom had bought me a little plastic deck protector that you can get. They still make them, you can get them anywhere, but she had bought me one at the time, and she asked me if they were still allowed at school, and I lied to her, telling her yes, that they were, when they had already been banned. And then she gave me that little deck box, and I felt so bad about lying about it. And I know that she only spent like $2 or $3 on it, but being a kid, you don't know what stuff costs, and I just felt so terrible that I had lied to her and got a present out of it. And I still feel really bad to this day about that. And then what's kind of funny about it, and the reason that she says Pokemon's the only reason I've ever gotten in trouble, is because like a week later she got a call from the principal saying that I was in trouble. I was in the principal's office because I had my Pokemon cards at school, and she was still under the impression that they were allowed. So that's kind of how she found out that I lied to her. And I just felt so terrible. I still feel so bad about that. But yeah, so a couple more stories related to the Pokemon cards. There was this kid who was a couple grades older but lived across the street from one of my friends, and they had known each other growing up, so I was kind of introduced to him that way. And I don't know why, but when everyone was first getting into collecting Pokemon cards, before people really knew about the common, uncommon, and rare, the star cards are the rare ones, and I guess before people really knew about that, Pikachu was like the most desired card for some reason, I guess because he was like the most popular Pokemon in the show and everything, but for some reason he was super desirable. And I remember going over to that kid's house who was, like I said, a couple years older, and wanting to trade cards with him, and he smugly told me, "Come back when you have a Pikachu and then we'll talk." And I always remember that. I mean, at the time it wasn't very funny, but it's really funny now to think back. Because Pikachu was like one of the most common cards. You know, you get 2 or 3 of them in a deck alone. But I thought that was kind of funny. And then another memory that I have of the cards is going over to this kid's house. This is also in elementary school, and they were kind of a richer family, I guess. They had a bigger house, and they had an entire basement that was converted into like a kids area, like a playroom. They had all the toys down there, and Legos, and video games, and everything. And there was Pokemon cards scattered all over the floor, and this isn't a small area. And it's not like, you know, oh, there's a couple here and there. It was completely covered with cards. Like, you cannot walk through the room without stepping on them. And I remember always wanting to trade with that kid. It was him and his little brother, and they had all the cards, and everybody always wanted to trade with them because they had so many. They had doubles and triples and quadruples of everything, but their parents were the type of parents that would not let them trade. And there were a few other parents like that where they thought, oh, we spent money on these cards and we don't want you to get ripped off, so just don't trade them. No trading allowed. And ran into that a lot, which was kind of annoying, but I mean, like, now that I look back, I can understand the parents. They don't really understand. They don't want their kid to get ripped off or whatever. But yeah, so other than the cards, I also played the games. I had, I think I had like every Game Boy game up until Crystal. My dad used to be a maintenance man at an apartment complex, and one of his duties on the job was to clean out apartments after people had moved out. He would clean them out, and then they would get to repairing and painting and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of times people would move out and leave a lot of stuff behind. And since he was one of the first ones to go in and start cleaning, he kind of had first dibs to keep anything that they left behind. Otherwise it was going to go in the garbage. So he would find me Pokemon cards all the time. And he'd find Game Boy games and video game systems and all this kind of stuff. And I remember one time he brought me home an original Game Boy, and it came in the big plastic Game Boy carrying case that looks like a Game Boy. And I remember inside there was Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening, and Pokemon Red, I believe. And I think that was the first time I played it, and then obviously I fell in love with it. It's a great game. I still like to go back and play it every now and then. And then I'm pretty sure I had all the other ones. I remember playing Yellow version because I remember Pikachu following you around, and I remember Gold and Silver, but then I distinctly remember going to a Fred Meyer with my great-grandma, and she bought me Pokemon Crystal, brand new. I remember it was $39.99, and it was awesome. I loved that game. And that was about the point where I was getting... This was when I was in middle school, and I was getting a little too old, I think. That was kind of the time when I was getting out of video games, I guess, and getting more into music and stuff like that. So Crystal was the last one that I really played as a kid, I would say. I've played all the other ones. I've played, you know, Ruby and Emerald and Pearl and all those, but Crystal was the last one that I remember playing as a child, really. And I had Pokemon Stadium and Pokemon Snap. I played those. I owned Pokemon Stadium, but I never owned Pokemon Snap as a kid. But I borrowed it from a friend and played that all the time. And used a Pokemon Snap station at Blockbuster to print out my pictures and, you know, all that fun stuff. So, yeah, Pokemon has had a very big impact on my life. It was a huge part of my childhood, probably the biggest thing, you know, since Power Rangers when I was really little. I can't really think of anything else that I got super into. It was Power Rangers when I was a little kid. I used to go to Toys R Us with my grandma, and I'd save up my pennies to buy the $8 figures with the heads that would, you push the button on the back and the heads would flip around. And I was really into Power Rangers, and then Pokemon is the next big thing that I can actually remember that I was like super into. So yeah, Pokemon has been a huge part of my life, big part of my childhood, and it's cool to see that it's, you know, still going strong, and kids today are still like super crazy about it and they love it, and that's awesome. And yeah, so I figured I would just do this video showing you guys some of my stuff that's in my Pokemon collection, in my game collection, all the Pokemon related items and all that, and then give you a little bit of history about my experience with Pokemon, the cards and the games and all that. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.